Nashville is such a fun and exciting city to visit. And of course, the most iconic building would be the Grand Ole Opry, which is the Ryman Auditorium, which was built over 150 years ago. As it turned out, our visit was at the same time as the Country Music Awards Festival, the 50th anniversary of the CMA. And it was so crowded, but we still had a good time. The bars and restaurants, of course, were packed. We did have to wait an hour to get seating at one of the restaurants, but most of the time we were sat pretty quickly. The crowds were fun. Everyone's dressed up so country, and it was a great time to go. Of course, one of the biggest hits and stars of country music was Johnny Cash and, of course, June Carter Cash and the Carter family. This museum has so much to see and watch and do. You're going to love it. This is my second time to go, and every time I go, there's more to see, especially with all the interactive displays. We ate at the Johnny Cash Bar and Barbecue just before we went to the Johnny Cash Museum. And the Bar and Barbecue is a wonderful restaurant. It's two levels. There were bands playing on each level. We ate at the restaurant level where there was a band playing, and they'll take your request. So we requested that they play Jackson for us, which they did, and my mom was so happy. But you're going to want to definitely eat at the Johnny Cash restaurant, which is right next door to the Johnny Cash Museum. Here's a photo of the band that was playing at the time that we were there. This was the second band to play for the day. We were there for a late lunch. They start having a band start at 11 o'clock, and there's 4 bands throughout the day. The last one begins at 10 p.m. So really, from the time they open till the time they close, you can hear music on both levels. And of course, you can do requests. Like we said, we chose Jackson, and they were wonderful. This is one of the really great interactive portions of the Johnny Cash Museum. It starts in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it shows him singing from the very beginning when he left the army all the way until his death in the 2000s. But what you do is you can put on the headphones and then you touch the screen and you can choose any performance you want of a song of that decade. And so, if you're looking at the 1960s, then you can choose things like his Tennessee flat top box. If you keep going, of course, you could do Boy Named Sue, Jackson, all of them are there. You can watch them on the screen and hear him singing and playing with the Tennessee 2 and also with the Carter family. Of course, at the Johnny Cash Museum, all of his albums are displayed on one wall. All of his 45s are on the wall just opposite that. And the gold records, of course, takes up an entire wall too. So all of that can be seen at the Johnny Cash Museum. Right above the Johnny Cash Museum is the Patsy Cline Museum. And there you can see so many of her beautiful costumes. You can see her furs. There's recordings of all of her hits. Tragically, of course, we lost her way too soon. But as far as the music, you get to hear it throughout the entire exhibit. There are many Patsy Cline original costumes for her shows, for her performances, especially those at the Grand Ole Opry, and they're displayed throughout the exhibit or throughout the museum. And my favorite is always the red one, the first one that she had her mom help her make. And she designed most of her costumes herself, and you'll learn more about that when you go to the Patsy Cline Museum too. Patsy died in a horrible plane accident with 3 other stars that were in the same plane. They were almost to Nashville. They were like less than 20 miles away, but they went into a storm. Even though they were warned, the pilot still did take them, and we lost Patsy way too young. In fact, she just had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, a girl and a boy, when she died, and so they grew up without a mom. And it's so sad that we've lost so many of our stars to airplane accidents.
Okay, I'm in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, and it's the Country Music Awards Festival. Oh my gosh, it's insane here.
Here's a photo of one of the crowds that we saw, especially on Broadway and First, Second, Third, Fourth. All of that section of the old part of Nashville where all the music and bars and restaurants are was completely packed, but it was really fun and everyone seemed to be having a good time. I know we never saw any ruckus or people getting out of control. So it was a fun time to be at the CMA Fest. All of the downtown area has Leon signs everywhere, and they are always around the country music because this is the music city. And here's a really great example. This is a Taco Bell sign for Taco Bell, which is right here along these turn of the century buildings. And the Taco Bell is on a guitar. And that's kind of what you see everywhere you go. It's really, really fun and very cool. Now, no trip to Nashville is really complete unless you're able to go into the Ryman Auditorium, which used to be the Tabernacle Church, where the Grand Ole Opry spent its first few decades. And what you do is when you do a backstage tour and you get to walk all around the Tabernacle, the church itself, the mother church of country music, you also get to get your photo taken as part of your ticket at the microphone at the Grand Ole Opry. So we did that. Here's my mom and my boyfriend John and me, and it was great. Here we are at the Grand Ole Opry. We decided to go to the country classics, the Opry country classics, because my mom really is into all of the Hank Williams and Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash and all of the old country singers, including the Carter family, of course. And so we wanted to see country classics, and it really was wonderful. We did the matinee show, and here is a photo from, we were about the seventh row back, so we had really good seats. They average around $100 per seat for that matinee and very close to the stage. You're going to want to for sure get a photo taken of yourself or do a selfie or do some of your family in front of the Ryman Auditorium, which was the home and the mother church of country music. It's over 150 years old because it started out as a tabernacle church. And so when you go to sit to watch the Grand Ole Opry show, you are actually sitting on the church pews, just like it has always been. Besides country music, which of course is so important in Nashville, there's also a lot of history for this city and the surrounding areas, which includes Civil War history. This is a photo from the on-off bus tour that we went on. We do that in a lot of cities to get a feel for all that's out there. We're so glad we did because this is the train station. It's historic, turn of the century, and it's now been turned into a hotel. Here are churches and government buildings on one of the main boulevards, and you'll see that this is part of your tour too. So many of the brick buildings are the originals from the turn of the century, and there's so many photos that you can take on the on-off bus tour. It's a nice view of the Tennessee State Capitol building. However, during this weekend, there were fires in Canada, and you can see there's a bit of a haze over Nashville, and it was like that on Saturday and on Sunday yesterday. But it was starting to clear up already, but you can see there's a bit of a haze, and that's because of those Canadian fires. Now, this is Tootsie's Bar. It also serves food, but it's mostly a bar. And this is where it's a Nashville institution. This is where all of the artists that would perform, especially back in the Johnny Cash and Hank Williams day, they would perform at the Grand Ole Opry, which is just around the corner, and they would go to Tootsie's afterward. And so you're able to see all the photographs and sign things from all the artists that go to Tootsie's. It's 2 levels. One of the top level, actually, you can sit on the roof and look out at all that's going on, especially with the CMA Fest. And it's fun to go into because it really is a Nashville institution. The Carter family is really one of the old mountain music, country music, iconic families. They're the ones who really started country music from the hills and coming and bringing it to the radio shows that were playing at the time. The Carter family is truly one of the founding families of country music, and so they are shown very prominently at the Johnny Cash Museum. The finale
One more thing that
performer
you should know
at the
about
Grand Ole
Nashville,
Opry
especially if you'd like
performance
to do a
that we
day
saw on
trip
Saturday
out
night
of
in May
Nashville or
is
just, short
Jamie
amount of
Johnson.
time out.
And I had
About
not
a
heard
half
him
hour
before
from
because
the
so much of
city
the
of
old
Nashville,
music that my mom
you'll be able
listens
to
to
go
is
to
what
the
I had listened
Stones
to and
River
didn't know some of the new
National
artists.
Battlefield.
But he
This
was
is a battle
tremendous,
that so many
so
people were lost
talented.
on
The
both
voice
sides
is
that it was
indescribable because it's so
of
deep and
loss
rich.
as
And
it was
he's a
for
songwriter
Shiloh.
as well. And the songs he writes are really story type
This
songs,
is a
which are some
really
of my favorite
extraordinary
country
battle.
songs.
The
He performed a
Union
new one that
lost
he
more
just
soldiers
written
than the Confederates, but
about
at
his
the
dying
end,
son,
the
not his own
Union
dying son,
won.
but about a man and a
But,
woman who are losing their son
it's
because
really,
he was
really
fighting
hard
in
to
one of
say
our wars.
since
And
they
it
lost
really
more
just
people.
we were all torn
but
up at the end, and
that's
and
how
it's
it went.
one of those
And
songs
anybody
which
who's in
that
the
you
Civil
really
War
truly
probably
never
already knew
forget.
that, but I
So
didn't
you're
know
going to
that.
want to definitely,
And
if you don't already
everything
know
is there,
Jamie Johnson,
including
which
the
I had not
cemetery,
until now,
and you'll
you
definitely
are
want to
going
see
to
that.
want to
It's
listen
about
to his
25-minute
music and
drive
buy
outside
his
of
CDs and
Nashville,
DVDs because
and
that's
there's a
what
lot
I'm
of
doing
other
right
day
now.
trips that would be excellent.
One
for
of
you
the
to
last
consider
things I want to tell
to
you about Nashville
have a
is that
wonderful
it plays a
time in
prominent role
Nashville,
in
and
our
I
Civil
hope
War
that you
history.
really enjoy
A very great
this
battle took
country
place,
music, city of music.
which was nearby. It's called the River, the
One
Stone
more
River
thing that you
National
should know about
Battlefield.
Nashville,
And
especially
the
if you'd
battle
like to
that
do a
took
day
place
trip
there,
out of
it's less than a
Nashville,
half
or
hour
just
away
a
from
short amount of time
Nashville.
out. About a
Was
half
one of the
hour from the
bloodiest
city
and
of
worst for
Nashville,
both sides.
you'll be able to go to the
During the
Stones
war,
River National
and the amount of people that
Battlefield.
were lost were
This
almost
was a
the
battle
same
that
as what
so
were
many
lost at
people were
Shiloh.
lost on both
And
sides
it's
that it was as
it's
big
really
of
a story that
loss
you're going to want. If
as
you're
it
interested
was
in
for
Civil War
Shiloh
history or history
and
of
also
American history,
Antietam.
you're going to
So
want to definitely, if
this
you're
is a
going to see
really
Nashville, take
extraordinary
a day
battle.
trip and
The
go to
Union
the
lost
Stone
more
River
soldiers
National
than the
Battlefield
Confederates, but at the
because
end,
there's so much to
the
see there. And there's
Union
also a
won.
Jackson,
But
President Jackson
it's
home
really,
type
really
things.
hard to
There's
say
a lot going on as far as Tennessee.
since they lost more
Al
people.
Gore is from there, so
But
when
that's
Al
how
Gore
it went.
has
And
trick or
anybody who's
treating,
into the
he always
Civil War
gives them
probably already knew
goo
that, but I
bars, and
didn't
goo
know
bars
that.
are done, and they're right
It's
across the
everything
street
is there,
from the Johnny
including
Cash Museum.
cemetery,
If you want to do
and
your
you'll
own
definitely
goo
want to
bar,
see
you can
that.
do
It's
that
about
there.
25-minute
Have
drive
a wonderful time
outside
in
of
Nashville. You're going to
Nashville,
want to have at
and
least
there's a
3
lot
to
of
4
other
days at
day
a
trips
minimum
that
to
would be
see
excellent for you
all
to
that we
consider
saw, of
to
course. If you
have
want
a
to see
wonderful
more, then of
time
course
in
try to stay
Nashville,
a week.
and I hope
Have
that you
fun.
really enjoy